Yes, yeah.
Where?
Paradise.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. How do you do that? Good morning, thank you. So it's okay with you. I'd like to back up and start from Perek Hey. Good morning. Let's start with Perek Hey. We explains two levels, two ways of explaining and understanding Emunah Pshuta. First of all, you see the words he uses here is Emunah Pshuta. Emunah Pshuta means there's an Emunah that a person gets to through a lot of thinking and questioning and searching and debating, and then eventually you get to the point where you understand and you see things. The Emunah Pshuta, now this is clear to me that my faith in Hashem is very clear because I had this question, I had this proof, I had this proof, and it was a logical process. Emunah Pshuta means simple faith. Simple faith is like a child, for example, when you tell him something and he believes you. It's not only that he believes you, it doesn't even question, doesn't have any doubts. And that's the issue here is when you're dealing with a child, the child doesn't have the intellect, the child doesn't have the seichel, so it's understood that when you tell him something, he accepts it with simple faith. But when you're dealing with an adult who's intelligent, an adult who approaches everything else in life with logic and intellect, how could it be, and what would be the basis for them to have simple faith? Faith is something which, in Pashas, you can't prove it intellectually, at least not so simple. And yet, by this person, it's simple faith. Simple faith, meaning to say, not even a question, it's just without a doubt, and it's just very simple, like the simplicity of a child. How could that be? Where does that come from? So there's two explanations. I just want to point out that the first explanation is very common in Maimarim and in a lot of different places. The second explanation is something very not common, and that's one of the unique things of this Maimar. Yesh levar ze api hayudua ze sheYisrael ma'aminim b'Elokus b'Emunah Pshuta. The fact that you didn't believe in God, this is page 356, after the Tzara, in the lessons of Maimarim, Hebrew English. So on page 356, the fact that you didn't believe in godliness b'Emunah Pshuta with simple faith, there's no need for proof. They're just simple. Timing. This is a result of two different reasons. Aleph, the first one is the mazel sees the neshama shelamayla roya elokus, that the neshama lemaila sees godliness, page 357, Riyah Shalamayla Maseichel, seeing, which means it's an experience which transcends logic. There's a pearl by neshama shabaguf, Emunah b'Elokus, and that's why the neshama in the body has this simple faith in Hashem. So these words, Mazlayu Chazi, I didn't get a chance to look at it and to prepare, but we should have a workbook on this also. And this is definitely one of the terms, and it's a term that's very common in Chassidus, Mazlayu Chazi, which means, it's based on a story in Gemara, they have it here in the notes, that Daniel, it says he saw a certain vision, obviously a prophetic vision. And then it said there were men around him. They didn't see the vision, but at the same time, they were overcome with tremendous fear. Such fear that they ran to hide somewhere. The Gemara asks, being that they didn't see, why were they overcome with fear? Daniel, he saw the vision. Okay, but why did they overcome with fear? And the Gemara says, even though they didn't see, their mazel saw. What is the meaning of the word mazel? So the Baal Shem Tov explains this, that the mazel means as follows. When we say that the neshama comes into the guf, not the entire neshama in its entirety descends and goes into the guf. Only a certain part of the neshama comes down and goes into the guf. There's another part of the neshama. In fact, most of the neshama remains in Shemayim. What does that mean? So when you hear these words, we always think along the lines of the way we think about Gash music and things. So you're trying to imagine the neshama is in Shemayim, then it stretches like a long piece of bubble gum into the earth, and a small piece of neshama goes in the body, and another piece stays up there. What does that mean? So let's remember we're talking about the ruchni. We're talking about something which is spiritual, not physical, and therefore it's not limited by space. So therefore, the example that we could think of perhaps would be, let's say, an adult wants to entertain a child. All right, you have an adult who wants to entertain a little child. In order to entertain the little child, he has to get down on his hands and feet. He has to play with the child and play like a child plays. If he's going to play like an adult plays with the child won't enjoy his playmate. So you have to get down on your hands and knees and squeal and squeak and scream and throw something and jump and run back and forth like young fathers and young mothers do. And they're playing with the child. And they're actually having a good time, and the child is having a good time. So does that mean that the adult, the mother or the father, actually now became a child? They no longer have the status of an adult, they became a child? Of course not, they're still an adult. But nevertheless, they do have to apply themselves to the child. They have to bring themselves down to the child's level and sort of play the way a child plays, and squeak and squeal the way a child does, and that's how they can relate to them. So you have two things here. On one hand, you're lowering yourself to the place of the child. On the other hand, in essence, you are an adult with all the qualities of an adult. That hasn't changed. So think of the neshama, again, it's not a matter of higher and lower, up there, down here. It's in a figurative way. Figuratively speaking, the human being and the adult remains an adult, but there's a certain percentage of the little aspect of the person that lowers himself and becomes, for the moment, for a child. You know, there's certain people that say that they can't teach children or play with children because they don't know how to do that. They're adults and they can only relate to people at an adult level. So you have to be able to bring yourself down, but it's not a real bringing down. The same with the neshama. The neshama is in a spiritual place, which means the neshama sees godliness, the neshama hears godliness, the neshama sees everything that's going on in Shemayim, in the heavenly realm. That's what the neshama experiences before it comes down. In fact, before it comes down, it's not even aware of the Gashmic world, the trees, animals, food, clothing, all the physical things we deal with doesn't exist up there. So that's a world where it's pure spirituality. And the neshama experiencing things in a pure spiritual way. Then the neshama comes down and goes into the body. And once it goes into the body, it starts experiencing things on a physical level through the body. Eating and drinking and sleeping and money and entertainment and all the things that a human being does. So what we're saying is that the essence of the soul never really changed. There's a part of the neshama that remains an adult, that remains and maintains its spiritual level just like it was before it came down. It's only a small percentage of the neshama that really changes and becomes like the guf. So where's that part of the neshama? It's not up there or down here. Up there means, figuratively speaking, up there means it maintains its spiritual level the way it was before it came down. And therefore, that part of my neshama sees everything, sees godliness very clearly. And that part of neshama doesn't need emunah. Just like we don't need emunah to see that the sun is shining, we don't need emunah to see that there's a wall here. We see it. So too, the neshama up there sees godliness. And because the neshama sees godliness, therefore its awareness of Hashem is with absolute certainty. That certainty is projected from the higher part of the neshama into the part of the neshama that's down here. So even though the neshama changes, once it comes down here, it's more physical, it sees things in a physical way. But this aspect of Emunah does flow from the deeper part of the soul, which sees everything clearly. And that comes down to Baal Shem Tov says that this is the explanation why it says in Pirkei Avos that every day there's a heavenly voice that comes out of Har Sinai. And the heavenly voice calls Yidden to do tshuva. The Baal Shem Tov asks, who is the voice for? If it's for those people that hear heavenly voices, if they're on that level, they don't need a voice telling them to do tshuva. If it's for people that need to do tshuva, they don't hear heavenly voices. So who is it for? The Baal Shem Tov says it's for those people that need to do tshuva, but even though they don't hear the heavenly voice, but the neshama hears the heavenly voice. So the fact that a person sometimes just randomly gets excited, gets inspired, wants to do something more, wants to get closer to Hashem, and they themselves can't always explain where that's coming from. What Shem Tov says is because the heavenly voice is on every day, and their neshama up there, the higher part of the neshama hears it, gets inspired, and the same thing, we don't hear it, but the inspiration that the higher part of the neshama experiences, that inspiration gets projected into the part of the neshama that's in the body. And by the way, this is an answer to a lot of things. That the fact that people have a certain experience and they get very excited and very inspired. Let's say someone's invited for Shabbos, they come for Shabbos, and they really love it, and they're very excited, so excited that they want to think about keeping Shabbos in the future. And when you say to them, what was it? And they'll say, it's just so nice and so warm. The challah was so soft, the fish that the Rebbetzin made was amazing. So that's a reason to make 180-degree turn in your life. So obviously there's something else going on. Shabbos is a very holy day. And when you keep Shabbos and you're in a Shabbos environment, that light that shines on Shabbos, again, we in the physical body might not see anything, but my neshama sees it and experiences it. And the neshama gets inspired. And that inspiration trickles down to the part of the neshama that I'm conscious of. And therefore, the person feels an inspiration, an excitement, feels something uplifting, even though they can't explain where it's coming from. But that's where it's coming from. Yeah.
The way sometimes we can make ourselves like more sensitive, like we can cultivate sensitivity to certain things. Is it possible for something like cultivate sensitivity to like if their model is hearing or experiencing, or it's like so like separate that like, or basically, yeah, it's so separate that it's not possible, like.
First of all, it's not all that separate because a lot of the things we experience, positive things, we don't know that could be actually coming from the Muslim. In other words, a person is learning and they're very inspired, a person is doing a mitzvah and they're very inspired, or something else which is inspiring. It looks like I'm being inspired because I thought about it, which is also true. I thought about it, makes sense to me, it inspired me, but it could very well be the reason why I feel that inspiration, maybe more than someone else sitting right next to me, experiencing or learning the same thing, is because for some reason or other, I'm right now being sensitive to that inspiration of Shem Alamayla. In other words, just like I explained about the heavenly voice, it explains Shabbos, it really applies to everything. The person does a mitzvah. You're lighting Shabbos candles. So the person who's lighting Shabbos candles thinks about the candles, about the tradition, what it means. But on a higher level, there's something very spiritual going on. The neshama up there feels it, experiences it, and gets very inspired. And that could lead the inspiration. So if someone lights Shabbos candles, let's say, and they get very inspired, and wow, I want to do this every week. What? What happened? What made them want to do it every week? The fire, they've seen fire before. The flame, the colors in the flame, the matches. And it was amazing. What? They can't explain it. There's a certain feeling. But what it really is the neshama l'mayla sees spiritually what's happening. And for whatever reason, they merited to be sensitive to that, what's going on at a higher level. So therefore, consciously, we feel an inspiration. Yeah.
What about these, like involved, whatever, like staunch atheists and like involved in other things, that's like, their mom is like not getting through to them, is that some.
There's something blocking, right? The truth is, any mitzvah I do, to a certain extent, makes me more sensitive. It's like opens a little crack. A person does the opposite of mitzvah, it closes the cracks. The whole day it's opening and closing, and it always balances out. But we never know. Sometimes a certain mitzvah that a person did has more power in opening up that. It's a little bit like, like plumbing, there's plumbing and somehow the water's not coming down here. There's something blocking. It's like in a human body, God forbid, there's something blocking the arteries and things aren't coming through. So these are spiritual arteries, and every mitzvah we do unblocks, and every avera we do, anything negative blocks. And we don't know the value of each one. But sometimes you find a person, like you say, is a staunch atheist. At least he thinks he's a staunch atheist. Good morning, welcome back. And that person also gets excited and inspired, which obviously means he also has that high neshama. But something happened on a certain day in a certain place that allowed the connection between the higher and the lower. Yeah.
My question might be like, so like, let's say like you have like Hashem Tov or let's say about Natalia, that they see things that no one else sees, like this story. Is that because is that Ruach HaKodesh, or is that because they're so connected, or is it because it's the same theme? But also like regular people, like some people have such a high level, I call it intuition, whatever, but they do see like certain things like that will happen, or you.
That's Ruach HaKodesh, of course. These are people who tzaddikim are people that they feel consciously what we all feel unconsciously, subconsciously.
Okay. What is a regular person? Like I've had things that I think to someone like I see certain things when it happens. No,
I
really.
can't explain something which I don't have that hidden talent and strength.
What is that for a regular person?
Yeah, some sort of a sensitivity, but I don't know. Right. Right. I can just tell a story that happened here once, many moons ago. Must have been somewhere in the 1980s. There was a student here who came from the Far East, and she was involved in some sort of guru, whatever. And then she got out of it, became totally firm, and she was studying here. And she said that she, again, everybody's different, everything is different. She said that sometimes she sees certain things, and later that's exactly what happens.
Right.
So she's saying to me, what is it? Is it avodah zarah? And I have to get rid of it. Is it like something from an impure place? Is it some sort of a gift that Hashem gave me? Or is it just nonsense? Nothing. I'm telling you what she was thinking. So she wanted to ask the Rebbe. I wanted to make sure, at least I tried, that she should get a very clear answer. So I wrote in the Rebbe, and I wrote these three options. A, is it avodah zarah? B, is it a gift from Hashem? Or C, is it something that really doesn't mean anything? I figured the Rebbe's gonna have to answer one of the three, so I got a clear answer. The Rebbe managed not to do that. What did the Rebbe answer? The Rebbe answered that a Jew should conduct his life on a daily basis based only on Shulchan Aruch, which means he didn't go into what this is about. He didn't go into say it's a gift. He didn't say that it's nothing. He just said, but practically speaking, whether you should do something or not do something, don't go by feelings or vision. Go by what it says in Shulchan Aruch.
So what does that,
What does that mean?
that mean that it was a
The
gift?
only thing that should guide us is things that are written.
It's nothing to do with halacha. I told a friend, I see two more neshamas that actually brought down by you. And I took male neshamas, and literally 10 months later, she had twin boys. She's a girl that was in 7 right here. But I'm saying it has nothing to do with halacha. That's like, it's like, some people have a push, but they can see, like.
But yeah, I can't explain it. Yeah. Anyway, so this is the first reason where the simple faith comes from. So in other words, we don't feel what the neshama feels, but the end result, which is the absolute certainty and the simplicity that Hashem is there, we feel. That's where you get. So that means that a person who doesn't believe in Hashem, he also believes. The fact that he doesn't believe just means that part of the neshama, which normally does flow, something's blocking it. And for them, for example, to believe in Hashem, even though they're gonna, let's say someone who does research, asks questions, fights, and argues with the teachers philosophically, and finally comes to the conclusion, you're right. I believe in Hashem. In reality, it's not that their intellect and logic produced Emunah, but the fact that they got answers to questions removed whatever was blocking, and now that faith that they have inside is there. The fact that you'll see that people who came to believe in Hashem because of their research and questioning and answering and all the intellectual process, but eventually they arrive at a place where their Emunah is much stronger than what the intellect sort of warrants, much deeper, because the answers to the questions, in a sense, remove whatever's blocking, and then something much deeper, which is already there, comes to the surface. Okay, this is the first reason. What could be the second reason? Bays is the second reason. It doesn't say bays, but that the root of the faith comes from a place that's even higher. It comes from the essence of the neshama, and the essence of the neshama is higher than the fact that the neshama sees godliness. Is kashus atzvus. The fact that the essence of the neshama is connected to godliness is not because of any reason outside of itself. We can't even say it because it sees godliness. It transcends that even of seeing the godliness. So what is it? Because the etzem of the neshama and Hashem is one. How could you possibly explain that? I would think of an example of the fact that I know that I am me. Is it because I looked in the mirror and I saw myself? No, I am me because I am me. I don't need to look in the mirror. I don't need to see something to have that knowledge of myself. I am myself. The essence of the neshama, if we say the neshama sees godliness, And that's why and where that simple faith comes from. That means that this is a part of the neshama that's not absolutely one with Hashem. And therefore, Hashem is there, I'm here, and I see godliness. So even though seeing is very powerful, and when you see something, it makes you connected to it in a very powerful way, but it's still something outside of me that I see. The higher level is that the simple faith comes from the fact that the neshama is one with Hashem. And if it is one, it even doesn't need the seeing, it just is. What's the difference? We'll learn later what the difference is. Am I in the same track as Rabbi Duba, where he explained it differently, explained the same, or he didn't explain? Same line? Okay.
I just said it in one
Yeah, he
line
said,
and
how
you
do
have half a page.
Okay.
He also, how do you know you have a right hand? You don't have to look at your right hand.
That's so cool, imagine that.
Okay, 158.
And that's faith, that right hand?
Yeah, it's the second one. You don't need to say. You know who one is God.
Look, now what is the difference? In fact, the whole mimer later is going to be is all based on the fact that these two levels of faith. I'm sure he gave you the background to the mimer, right? When the Rebbe gave it, what was going on?
Yeah, it was the last one, my right hand. I give it up before, and then it's.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
the last one.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but let's continue in the mimer. Yeshleimar. What is the difference between the two explanations? Emunah b'neshama hamlubeshes v'guf, haba Marias haneshama shelamayla v'bchinas makif. This emunah, this faith, even though it's simple faith, everybody it has it, but if it comes from the result of the fact that the neshama l'mayla sees godliness, basically what we understand from this is that there are two levels in the neshama l'mayla. When we talk about the neshama l'mayla, which remains up there, there's two levels. One is the essence of the neshama, and the other is what we would call the manifestation of the neshama. Just like in a person, we have our faculties: intellect, emotion, vision, hearing, speaking, thinking, feeling, all these other faculties. Then there's the essence, the core, the essence of my identity, who I am. Same thing with the neshama. There's the essence of the neshama, and then there is the extension of the neshama. So vision, that is in this lower level of the soul that's not the essence. And therefore, that part of the soul sees Hashem, and from seeing, it believes. But the higher level of the neshama, and therefore, the b'chinas makif. What does it mean, b'chinas makif? It means that therefore, the emunah is not something which is completely, totally penetrating the neshama. To some extent, it's not totally internalized. The kimish neshama shalamayla hilamayla mislapshus, being that the neshama that it's up there is something which is not invested in the body, it's outside of the body. Again, outside doesn't mean physically outside, but it's not something which we feel and experience consciously. Therefore, pu'uloso b'neshama amalubeshet b'guf b'chinas makif. B'chinas makif. So, we had the word makif before in the previous Maimorim. Makif means, literally it means encompassing, but it means something that I have, something that's affecting me, but it's not totally internalized with me. So one of the rules are like this: anything that comes from the outside and influences me from outside, that's makif. Anything that comes from within me, that's pnimius. In other words, if I do something which I really don't want to do, but someone else is sort of pushing me to do it, either they're pushing me to do it by offering me an award. If you do this, I'll give you this and this award. So even though I do it happily, I'm going to be getting an award. But being that I'm only doing it because someone else is encouraging me and someone else is promising me this award or this reward, therefore that means that it's something outside of me that's getting me to do this. And then it's makiv. It's not completely, totally me. If I do something because I myself understand and I myself feel and I myself come to the conclusion that this is the thing I should be doing because my intellect dictates to me that I should do it, and that's why I do it and I want to do it, that's pneumius. What? The word for that is pneumius. Pneumius means it's internal.
So Rabbi Majeski, you're saying that it's, we're feeling it from the mazel, that means that's lack.
To a certain extent, not completely. The word makiv means that it's not totally internalized. And later it'll explain what does it mean not totally internalized. If there's going to be tremendous stress, tremendous challenge, it might not carry over, might not go through. Emunah, in other words, just like you say on a simple level, remember the question we once asked, how do you know the difference between a dead fish and a live fish? Remember?
That's the stream.
Right. The fish that goes with the current is dead. It only goes with the current. The fish that goes against the current is alive. In other words, if you look at the two fishes, they're both in the water, they're both moving. In fact, one might even be moving faster than the other, but one is not really alive because the movement is not coming from the fish, it's coming from the water.
Wait, say that again.
Once upon a time, there was a fish.
Okay.
There were two fish. One, and you look at the two fish, one of them is moving and the other one is moving, yet one is alive, one is not alive. How do I tell the difference? One fish is moving against the current, right? The water is going this way and the fish is going this way. The other fish only moves along with the current. The current goes this way, the fish goes this way. It changes, it goes that way. That's a sign that it's not alive, which means that the movement doesn't really belong to the fish, it belongs to the water, something outside of the fish that's getting it to move. The same with, let's say, we find in Rashi and Chumash reference to tzaddikim, that if a person, let's say, is righteous, but only if they're in the right environment, if the people around them and the environment around them is not positive, they become lower, they lose their status, they lose their level. That's a sign that their righteousness was not really internalized, because otherwise they should be able to go against the current.
Okay, but I have a question. So let's say you think you're doing certain mitzvahs. Let's say a person is doing certain mitzvahs because their neshama is energized by makkah.
Right?
Does that then devalue the mitzvah?
No, chas
completely?
v'shalom. Don't forget, the neshama is still my neshama. It's not somebody else. It's not like somebody from a different planet is coming to push me to do it. This is me. It's my neshama. When we say it's makiv, it means relatively speaking, we call it makiv. Relatively speaking means that the other level, which means that my emunah comes because me and my essence, Hashem is my essence, that's something which is not something outside of me, that's the deepest part of me, and therefore that's the ultimate internalization of emunah. So what he's going to bring out, as we'll see later, that the emunah that comes because I see godliness is somewhat limited, because it's coming from something outside of myself. The emunah that comes because I and Hashem are one, that's something so much part of me that this is unconditional, this is unlimited. And this will bring a person to have emunah under the most difficult, unimaginable circumstances.
Wait, so pneumius brings a person to unimaginable?
Right. If it's pneumius means if it became internalized with me, then therefore that Emunah will always be with me. It can change. Now the truth is we'll learn that we have both levels. Every year it has an neshama, and the neshama as the essence, and the neshama. But the question is, which one is the one that's making me feel this Emunah? If it's only the lower level, then my Emunah will be somewhat limited. Again, generally speaking, I'll have the Emunah, and generally I don't have any doubts, and generally I am okay. But if there's chas v'shalom, a very, very big test, sometimes that could shake up the Emunah. That's a sign that it's coming from the lower level, from the market. But if a person's Emunah is so strong, even to the point that they're ready to give up their life, for example, that's the kind of Emunah that comes from the essence of the soul. And if it's the essence, it's inseparable. If it's something that I see, then it's something outside of me, and there could be some separation. But if it's coming because this is my essence, me and my essence are inseparable. It's all one. And therefore the Emunah also becomes inseparable.
But
Okay, yeah.
maybe you can answer this tomorrow. But you go through your whole life and you're wondering like, oh, I'm doing this mitzvah, like I've taken on this new hachata. How do I know that it's come from Pneumius and it's not come from Makah? Or that it's come, I don't know.
Well, I don't think we got to look for trouble, Somebody once wrote the previous Rebbe. He was a sheikhet. Sheikhet means he slaughtered, made the kosher meat. So he wrote the free Rebbe that he no longer wants to be a sheikhet. Why? When he stopped and was thinking that imagine if one little thing goes wrong, and I do it the wrong way, the animal is straight. One animal feeds hundreds of people. So hundreds of people are going to eating treif because of me. So I'd rather not do this work, do something else. So there's two stories, two answers from the Free Rebbe. One person, the Free Rebbe answered, so who should be a sheikh? Someone who's not afraid. Who should be the one to have this job? Someone who doesn't care. If you care, that means you're suitable for the job. Another answer once told somebody, which is something could be applied more general. He said it in Yiddish. In Yiddish, it has more juice to it. But he said in Yiddish, "Medaf nicht kratzen wo es beißt nicht," which means don't scratch where it doesn't itch. If your skin doesn't itch and you start scratching it, what happens? It starts itching. So basically, it means you're having faith, you're doing Torah, you're doing mitzvahs. Let's not question myself. Is it coming from here? Is it coming from there? Things are moving. Let's not scratch where it doesn't itch. That's the answer. Okay.
Yeah.
To be continued, hopefully, in Yirtzeh Hashem tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.
That's a good question. It's not for me. Yeah, it's okay. I gave $11 to this. I'm gonna give it to this kid, and he's like on his 20th cycle.
Rabbi Majeski here? No, not yet.
On his 20th cycle of chemo. So the father with fish, and he's also a lawyer. So he said he got $1 from the Rebbe for his day, but he was like, he said, how is keeping $1 from the Rebbe gonna affect someone, and why not the purpose of the doctor? This exact one. What was the
I'm going to the house. Yeah, second house.